Okay, it's 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order.
Yeah.
Recording. Okay. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18. Meetings of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee will be conducted both in person and remote from March 31st, 2025. Agenda items listed are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB, the school committee recorder, Berkshire Edge, and Berkshire Eagle. Once transcribed and approved, minutes will be made public and posted to our website. First thing on our agenda tonight is minutes of July 25th, August 15th, and September 26th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Jason.
I have corrections on the 26th, the September 26th.
Okay, so let's put, is there any other corrections or are people going to abstain? So if not, Ann, can you just withdraw and just do the 25th and the 15th? That way it'll just be easier.
So moved. The 25th and the 15th.
Second. So motion by Ann, second by Jason. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Corey, go ahead, Ann.
On the second page, where it's talking about author Alexander Diaz, right now it says October 19th, and I think that's why it's the 18th, right? Yeah, and then on the third page, right, updates and just instructional leave and then mandatory training. I just didn't know, it says this was the thorn reported by Fred Erickson in a previous meeting and not, period. I just didn't know what that.
Oh, we just removed that.
Yeah.
That would affect both sides. Anything else?
No.
So do I have a motion as amended?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Superintendent's report.
Excellent. Well, I'm Rob Putnam. I'm sitting in for Peter Dillon tonight. And I would like to begin. We're going to start the superintendent's report as we always do, roses and thorns. I looked up roses and thorns on the internet because I'm trying to think, where did this thing come from? Where is this at? And so I learned that it's an ice-breaking activity. But as I was searching, I saw a reference to a poem, The Narrow Way, by Anne Bronte. And it has a line in it, but he that dares not grasp the thorn should never crave the rose. And I think this is an apt metaphor for school administrators in that every worthwhile endeavor has both negative and positive aspects, and you must embrace all if you hope to make a difference in the lives of students. So with that, we begin with the roses and thorns. Buddy Brooke.
I don't have to say. Thank you. Cynthia Carey, Honeybrook Elementary. Thank you for all being here and having me tonight. My rose for tonight is that over last week, we had a faculty meeting where our SEL, so our social emotional leads, presented our school plan for a school store. This is part of our, you'll love all the acronyms, our PBIS system at school, which is a positive behavior supports and interventions. So it is a school store that you will buy little trinkets and things with these little tickets that kids get for their good behavior. And at school, we call them high fives. So our social emotional leads worked with our Betsy D'Agostino, the assistant principal, and they created this school store and then presented it to the staff. And the school store will be opened every third week of the month. where students can come and cash in these high five tickets that they get for being responsible, working hard, and being kind at Buddy Brook. Any adult in the building can give these tickets out, and we encourage all the adults in the building to give the tickets out whenever they see students being kind, working hard, and being responsible. And they can, go and have five high five tickets, and that might get them a colorful pencil. Or they could also have 20 high five tickets and get a Muddy Brook t-shirt. Or teachers also can, they'll each have a bin where they can do things like have lunch with the teacher. And that can be one of the rewards. So when a classroom goes down, they have the option of not just buying a trinket, but more buying like an experience. So they could have pajama day for the class, or an extra recess, or lunch with the teacher. And the teacher would name those prices. And so students could go down and cash in their good behavior for these rewards. And kids are super excited about it, and I think the staff is super excited about it too. I don't have any storms. Sorry.
Let's go, what's up next?
Right. Here we have me, and we have Jennifer, who's our librarian, who's gonna help out. Jennifer, I think you're okay to stay there. That's okay. Is that okay?
I'm not sure about here, but.
Oh, okay, maybe.
I thought I was going after you, I think.
Nice to see everybody tonight. Congratulations to all of our student community and NESDEC award winners. Really awesome. It's an exciting evening. I would just like to thank our families and our students and our staff and our teachers who make educational travel possible. Middle school, we're not taking European trips or getting in airplanes. But this week we did have a trip. We have a trip tomorrow to Beartown State Forest. We had half of our sixth grade went to the Clark Art Institute today for a gathering of Kata artists at the Clark, and the other half of our sixth grade will be going tomorrow. And then our eighth grade will be going in its entirety to Catamount to do some challenge course team building tomorrow. So, it's a lot of work to make these trips happen, and very grateful to people who do that work. Part of the group that make these things possible is our food services team. And, our food service team come in early in the morning. They're usually gone by 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They get very few accolades, very little recognition. They are just doing the work and making things happen nutritionally for kids. At Du Bois and in this district, Kathy, our district director, is remarkable. That's an incredibly complex position with a ton of governmental and bureaucratic oversight. And she does it so gracefully. And then Teresa, Holly, and Kim at our school, they go above and beyond every single day. I'm in the cafeteria for most of our lunches on a daily basis. And they serve our students with grace and with empathy, and really just focused on caring for kids. And I want to say publicly that we really appreciate them. Now, my final rose for this evening is to thank Christopher, our high school principal, and Carl, our AD here at the district, and to thank everybody that makes unified basketball possible. We had our first home game there Tuesday night. I saw several folks in this room were there. Thank you to our student athletes, to their coaches, and to the super supportive families who make this just an amazing and remarkable experience for kids, but I think an equally or maybe even greater remarkable experience for people that are fortunate enough to be there to see our student athletes in action at unified basketball. Thorns, and some of these will echo what Jennifer's going to share. We really continue to be vigilant at the middle school around the use of language that is hateful or hurtful. You can imagine in a building that serves middle-level students, this week, this has felt like a full-time job in and of itself, regardless of everything else that Ellie and I have to do. We really are grateful to the tremendous efforts by our teachers and paraprofessionals to monitor this and call it out when we hear it. Very grateful to our students for doing the same, because the vast majority of students are not engaging in hateful or hurtful language. And really encourage our parents to have these conversations at home about what is school appropriate, what's not school appropriate, and in many cases, what is just not appropriate as a human being to say about another human being. And my last thorn of the evening is that with some of our students, we are struggling to find the right balance of hard work, serious learning, and having fun at school. School has to be fun. Some of our students, particularly among our 7th and 8th grade, I'm observing, are really struggling to find that balance between academic work, serious hard work, and fun. And we're going to be redoubling our efforts to help those students refocus for their own good and for the good of the classmates that they are frequently distracting from doing their own best hard work. And again, we'd ask for family, caretaker, parent support in helping our students understand that school has to be fun, but we also have really, really important life-lasting work to do while we're at school. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm tasked with reporting out roses and thorns for a couple of the grade levels and our different teams. So I'll start with the exploratory team, who wants to report as their roses this week that they finished up their hex semester. So they have kind of a different schedule, see some of their students for fewer days. They finished their first 7 classes of the year, really liking the smaller class sizes. And they want to report that all of their classes, with the exception of PE, are under 18 students right now. It seems to hover in like the mid-teens. And so many benefits to this model that they are seeing, including more direct instruction per student and individualized learning, and that it works really well for materials heavy classes like art, where the students really get to dig in. The 7th grade would like to report, I'm going to kind of put the roses and thorns together, that even though the thorn would be the disparity in aptitude creates challenges, obviously, for teaching and learning as students are coming upstairs to the 7th grade. They really overall seem ready for the rigor that the 7th grade teachers are throwing at them this year and inviting them to engage in, and they're really excited about that. Another thorn for them is that, as Jake mentioned, there have been some incidents of hateful language being used at school. It's being addressed very promptly and directly, and they're happy with that. That is the same thorn that the 8th grade would like to report, an issue with 8th graders using vulgar and insensitive language, but the admin, the team is feeling is being very supportive during crew meetings with every crew, with every small group of students to discuss this in no uncertain terms, and the team is really happy with that. The 8th grade also wants to report that they're very excited to go on the Catamount field trip. Kids overall seem really excited. They're working really hard in 8th grade on building community, so this class feels really good and unified when they head up to the high school next year. It's looking really promising. And they just want to say that as they learn more about their students, they feel better able to custom build their classroom experiences, make things feel engaging. And I think that's it from 8th grade. And then I just wanted to report from the library. I know that you know the author of our One School, One Story book, Santiago's Road Home, is coming Friday to the school next week, October 18th. She'll be at the school all day doing activities with each grade level of students. This year, we got the students really involved in planning those activities, so it's going to be kind of custom built for each class. The students are super excited. There's going to be a lot of art and hands-on stuff. They'll learn a lot from her. Today, we had 2 One School, One Story activities. Also, in the morning, I hosted a parent book club discussion of Santiago's Road Home, and I suppose my thorn would be that the turnout wasn't great, but the rose would be that it was an amazing discussion. It was really, really fun, and I hope to try to build on that and get more parents involved in One School, One Story. And then at lunch and recess today, we hosted a Google chat with Allegra Love, who is an immigration lawyer who lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, who has worked on the border in detention centers with children and families. She's been a school teacher before. She landed perfect tone with the students. She had a great conversation. We had 12 students show up for that conversation with her, and they asked her a lot of questions, and she got them really excited about the need for just building their empathy through stories and learning about stuff in the world. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's time for the high school. Christopher, are you leading this to the student representatives?
Yes.
By the way, I'd like to make sure everybody knows on the screen that we have Mirabel Myers and Ariel Dominguez as our representatives. If you wave, maybe the camera will get you.
Yes, they're gonna go first. Thank you.
Yeah, then I'll start off. One of our roses is a fantastic football win against Jury at home, score ending 52-14. The team played really well with Isaiah Kiefner achieving Offensive Player of the Week. And this was also accompanied by a quote from our head coach. And it went, "Sean Frank is Sean Frank. There are some things that are dependable. There's death, there's taxes, and there's Sean Frank."
On the sports note, our unified basketball team also won their first home game. It was really great to have all the players out. Like I mentioned, we're super happy to have this team as part of our sport and culture. Last Wednesday was also senior night for Monuments Cross Country. We had it on our home course. It was great. Amelia Deslitz, who's a junior, was able to set a new course record for the girls, running a time of 19 minutes and 8 seconds. And Edgar Pacheco, another junior, was able to win the race for the boys team. So that was great. Seniors were celebrated. Everyone was super pumped about that.
Yeah. So another thing was a volleyball win against Mount Everett, and with a final score of I think 3-1 set, which was a really good win for volleyball. Moving ahead for soccer, girls soccer also had a win against Mount Greylock, ending in a 2-1 score, with Iris Firth tying game in the 55th minute, and then combining with Jade Nelson, who hit the game-winning score. This was a fantastic win for the team, as it had been a very long time, 6 years since we had beat Greylock. And on the other side, on the boys' side, a win against the number 2 team of Division 4, Hampshire Regional, ending in 3-1. And they're currently standing as the 4th best team in the division.
In terms of student life, last week was our homecoming week. So the class of, class 25 soon. The class of 25 hosted a great spirit week with theme days for students and staff to participate in. We had a great pep rally on Friday, home football game, which we beat Jury in. And then we had a homecoming dance on Saturday night, which was super great. Everyone's been working super hard since the start of school. So it was great to have everyone come, hang out, have fun. The theme was disco, so lots of sparkles. That was great. On the educational side, with more Monument's internship program is up and running. Monument has a great internship program with almost 50 juniors and seniors involved in internships in their community. Internship locations range from Fairview Hospital for students who have an interest in the medical field. We've got people at Lead Bank, Chirico Electric, Hadab Subaru, working with the town of GP government offices, the West Stockbridge Police Force, a bunch of local restaurants, multicultural bridge program, Railroad Street Youth Project, and our own Moneybrook Elementary School, as well as many other places. Thank you. So these internships are a great opportunity to give students hands-on experiences in fields of interest, as well as make really valuable connections in our community. So that program has been up and running, and we're super happy to see it flourishing.
Now, moving on to our thorns, there was a little commotion at the football game against Drury. It included one of our students and a few opposing students from the other team becoming slightly aggressive. The administration is very much aware of it, and they are taking the proper steps to improve supervision of the games and to make sure that it doesn't happen again. They are also working with the visiting schools administration and trying to see what they can do about it and make sure that we can all come to a good understanding.
Another thing we have is on Tuesday, we've been having a problem with students clogging up the hallways in between like the passing periods for lunch, which has just been causing a lot of disruption. The proposal that came out of this was we were able to have discussions in advisory where we talked about maybe how to improve this, what ways from the student perspective we could work to not clog up hallways. So it's a little thing, but we're getting better at it.
Yeah, and then just to quickly add on, one of our staff committees is also working on ideas on how to curtail or resolve the issue. So it's great to see some self-involvement in that too.
Okay, thank you, Ariel and Mirabel, appreciate you. There is one thing you didn't mention on the sports side though that occurred last night.
Oh, was it our
Please.
boys soccer
Yes.
going 5-1, I believe it was?
No, it was 3-0.
3-0.
My son plays for Greylock, by the way.
Anyway, we beat Greylock 3-0 last night. It
Sure
was-
did.
it was Spartans. Yeah. Okay, we're at 5-1. That's like nice.
You were so excited. All right, thank you, Ariel and Mirabel, fantastic. I just want to add a little bit to the Roses and Thorns. You know, we're going to be doing some awards this evening for our students, their outstanding work. We're very proud of them, and we'll get to that in a moment. Last night we had, for Fall Festival, we had Common Class and Stage Combat. Common Class is a time when all of the schools involved in Fall Fest come together at one school. We're the only school that hosts it, my understanding. All the rest of them are at Shakespeare and Company. So it's all 20 Fall Fest directors from Shakespeare and Company, staff and students from all 10 festival schools come to practice. Well, they came to practice Stage Combat at our gym last night, which I'm sure was fantastic. I'm sorry I missed it. I was busy at the Mount Greylock versus Monument game where Mount Greylock lost. I think maybe I'm the good, you know, I don't know, the charm or something here, I don't know. But anyway, as Mirabel said, the homecoming last week was a great success, as defined by over 200 students who attended, looked beautiful, many sparkles for sure, danced and smiled, as well as the long, boring evening for the admin who had nothing out of the ordinary to attend to. I always tell people, I prefer a long, boring dance. Thank you to Jack Carletti and the seniors in the Monument Mountain Regional High School Student Government for putting on a fantastic event. It was really great. And I just wanted to add one other thing with regard to the Unified that both Jake McCandless and Ariel Mirabel reported on. In Dr. McCandless's report on Unified, quickly thereafter, there was an item in his Thorns about hateful language, and having a child who had played on Unified for 5 years, I believe that this sport really exemplifies the best of who we are, as we care for each other, we see value and worth in each other, and we see the beauty in each other as we engage in a sport where everybody wins, both teams and the entire community. And I believe it is one way that we actively combat hateful speech as we practice real inclusivity and teach our community what that means. So it's great stuff. I was there and it's really fantastic. Thorns, as they mentioned, some problems at the game that we're addressing and also creating plans to supervise and curtail. I did want to point out, just to back up a little bit, to the what happens is the kids get bored of sitting outside or in the cafeteria, so they all go into the hallway, end up with like 200 kids in the main hallway. And you know, I don't know if sometimes kids get a little, you know, they get a little handsy or rough, as you might imagine, and sometimes things break. Nothing is broken. The beauty of this is the soft part, because this is really an opportunity for students to have a voice and agency in what we're going to do. The administration could have said, everybody stay where you are, nobody in the hallway. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is provide the opportunity for the students to provide solutions around it. So turned out to be a good thing. We're not there yet, but we'll get there. Thank you.
I think that's all of our Thorns and Roses for the evening.
Yes.
So it's time to go to student awards.
Great.
Now, this evening, Christopher Barnes and I have the pleasure of recognizing several Monument Mountain seniors with awards. The Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Certificate of Academic Excellence is an annual award given to high school seniors who have consistently demonstrated academic excellence and contributed to their school communities. The National School Development Council, NESDEC, Award for Academic Growth and Student Leadership in Learning is given to high school seniors who have consistently pursued a high level of academic effort and who have also served as positive role models for the student body. The Daughters of the Revolution Good Citizenship Award is given to high school seniors who have consistently demonstrated the qualities of dependability, service, leadership, and patriotism in their homes, schools, and communities. I want to make something clear, is that the information that we are presenting tonight and all the minutes, everything is available on the Berkshire Hills Regional School District website. All of the documents that are discussed here are available, so you'll be able to read about these students if you forget the things that we are about to say about them. The information about the students is, as I said, available. So I will make the first award on behalf of Peter Dillon, as this award has superintendent.
And if I could interrupt just real quick, unfortunately, the first student's not able to be here, I believe for mothers in attendance, but if you would carry on, he didn't know that Sue wasn't here, so I wanted to make sure that we do that, okay?
Well, this is actually, okay, then, I'll still read aloud here.
Please do, absolutely.
I've actually known her mother for a very long
Okay,
time.
good. And it should be your pleasure.
Very long. It is my pleasure. So on behalf I'm gonna be doing the first one, and Peter, Christopher will do the rest. So the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, as I said, is something that's presented at the beginning of the senior year and can be included in the student's credential package and counselor recommendation. This year's award goes to Tessa Baldwin. Tessa Baldwin is a strong Tessa is a strong and conscientious student and a leader in our school community. She has taken the most demanding courses offered in Monument Island and performed at the top of her class. Due to a schedule conflict, she could not take the AP biology at our school during her junior year. She chose to take it through Brigham Young University online program, and she earned an A in the course. This demonstrated her willingness to show initiative, to manage her time, and to find solutions to challenges. Tessa did an internship with David Scribner, the editor-in-chief of the Berkshire Edge, this past summer, and she is currently completing an online creative writing course. Tessa is a talented soccer and lacrosse player, and she is one of the captains of the soccer team this fall that is playing well and boasts a 10-1 record. She's also a member of our student and adult advisory board to the principal. Tessa is a responsible employee, having worked several jobs, such as being a camp counselor at Berkshire Botanical Gardens, a food prep worker at her mom's catering business. Tessa is the co-leader of the annual service trip to Dominica School and Orphanage in the Dominican Republic. She is the head editor of Monuments Yearbook this year and the editor-in-chief of our school newspaper, the Maroon Tribune. Tessa is articulate, kind, humble, and she possesses a good sense of humor. She is well deserving of this award.
You want to clap? We have the awards here, but unfortunately, we didn't get them to Dr. Dillon in time, so he's going to sign them and we'll get them to the students, all right? I'm going to, if Tessa were here, I would have invited her up, but I want to invite each of the other students up one at a time. After they come up and we speak about them, I'd like them to just step to the side and then we'll get a photo at the end of over here, okay? So the next award winner is Brownlee Boyd. Brownlee, if you wouldn't mind coming up, please. You can sit or stand, whatever you like. Stand, be Brownlee, go ahead, do whatever you like. Get the camera on you, you're much better looking. This is the first of our two New England School Development Council or NESDEC awards. We're going in alphabetical order, so the B's are up first. Brownlee Boyd is an outstanding student and leader here at Monument. Some highlights of Brownlee Boyd's accomplishments and impact here include being a founding member and leader of our Student Adult Advisory Board Steering Committee and the Academic Advancement Subcommittee. He is co-president of the student government and a member of our National Honor Society, and he has mentored and tutored a number of students both in and out of school. He has been a volunteer at Charlie's Fund, with Charlie's Fund, and he's a recipient of the Cornell Book Award at last year's Junior Awards ceremony. He was selected to represent Monument at the Hugh O'Brien Young Leaders Conference, as well as traveling to San Diego as part of a group representing Berkshire Hills for a week-long visit to progressive high schools in California. Brownlee took on a major role in helping improve the delivery of our shifts to proficiency-based learning through independent studies with Ms. Hernandez and the Rethinking Grading Initiative to do research, collecting, analyzing data on student learning, and subsequently presenting to our school district at both state and regional conferences. Beyond his academic program, Brownlee is a committed and accomplished athlete playing varsity lacrosse for our co-op team with Lennox High School and is a captain and an all Berkshire skier for our high school alpine ski team. He spends his summers working at the Stockbridge Golf Club and at the Stockbridge Bowl, and during the year, he runs his own ski tuning business. He's planning to pursue, go figure, business and economics in college. Congratulations, Brownlee, well done. Roller up next. She is our next NESDEC award winner. Okay. But still keep the camera on her. Hannah Roller is one of the top students in her class and has had a major impact on our school community through her leadership and as a trained facilitator for restorative justice and youth and adult transforming schools together. She is a founding member of our SAB, or Student Adult Advisory Board Steering Committee, and Academic Advancement Subcommittee, and as co-president of our student government. Hannah earned the George Eastman Young Leaders Award from the University of Rochester at our junior awards ceremony last June. She has represented Monument at the Great Schools Partnership School Redesign Conference in Rhode Island and in San Diego with a group representing Berkshire Hills, visiting progressive high schools, and has presented to the school committee, school administrators, faculty, and students on improving our approach to student learning. She is a member of the National Honor Society and a volunteer for Best Buddies, a 3-sport athlete and a captain for cross-country running, and our swim team, and plays varsity lacrosse for our co-op team with Lee High School. Hannah was part of the students who traveled over their school vacation to the Dominican Republic, volunteering in the Dominica School and Orphanage. She works every summer and weekends with a family business, Samuel's, thank you. Samuel's Deli and Catering. And beyond her academic program, Hannah has also participated in a number of independent studies in the humanities and spent the summer of her 11th grade year in an independent study with the Director of Research at Austin Riggs and the Erickson Institute for Education, Research, and Advocacy. I'm just getting tired reading it, Hannah. Hannah is interested in pursuing neuroscience in college. Congratulations, Hannah. And the recipient of our DAR Good Citizens Award is Ariel Dominguez. If you don't mind coming up, Ariel. As I said, Ariel Dominguez is the recipient of our DAR Good Citizens Award. This award recognizes and rewards individuals who possess the qualities of dependability, service, leadership, and patriotism in their homes, schools, and communities. Ariel has been an outstanding student leader among his peers since arriving at Monument. He has served as a mentor and counselor in our Project Connection summer programming in our school district. He now serves as a leader as captain of our football team. He has competed for Monument in wrestling as well. He has served as a mentor and counselor in the Project Summer program. I'm sorry, there was a typo there. We said that. He is a member of our National Honor Society. At our junior awards ceremony last June, Ariel was a recipient of the Chang Chavkin Scholarship and the Rensselaer Medal for Math and Science, sponsored by RPI. Ariel is a member of SAB, Student Adult Advisory Board, a contributor to the Maroon Tribune School newspaper, and a volunteer for Charlie's Fund. Ariel was selected to represent Monument at the 411-413 Berkshire County Youth Leadership Conference. He also works part-time with his father's landscaping business and home improvement business as well. Along with his academic program, Ariel has been a dual enrollment student at BCC, taking courses in economics and history. He is planning to attend college for engineering and business. Congratulations, Ariel. Screen. Come on over here. We're just going to take a quick photo to ensure we have it for a press release.
I just wanted to join us for one. Okay, one step that was keys on in front of the screen.
All right, congratulations.
So just as Christopher said, We'll be waiting Peter, for Peter to sign these, and then they'll be distributed to the kids next week. Okay, then, we move on to SIPs. I wonder how many people actually know about SIPs. Do you know the origin of SIPs? Anyhow. And by the way, do you know what SIP stands for? So anyhow, it's the School Improvement Plan. And interestingly enough, Massachusetts General Law 69, Section 1L, and Massachusetts Code of Regulations, CMR 2.0, they require the development and presentation of an annual school improvement plan to support improved student performance. The law states the plan shall include, but not be limited to, the same components required for a district improvement plan. Each school improvement plan shall be submitted to the superintendent who shall review and approve the plan after consultation with the school committee. I'm not going to mention the date because we kind of let that date slide this stuff.
I just wondered if it was an opportune time to have our student leaders go ahead and.
Oh, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Yes. Yes.
They have to study.
Not in plan.
Thank you for bringing that up. Anyhow, the plan is supposed to be implemented according to the development and schedule established by the superintendent. So that being said, what we're going to do this evening is have each of the principals present their school improvement plan. And for those of you in our listening audience, you can go to the website and look at these things in full detail, if that's something you'd like to do. So, what do you? So I'm going to share a screen. Not go to this, but go to that. Looks like you're up first, Kristen.
Yes.
Let me figure out how to do this.
So I believe that everybody has the full draft of this school improvement plan in the packet and available online or something like that, right, Ron? So we just have some notes up here, and I'm gonna do some highlights on it. So I'll just open up with how we started this draft at the high school. We used the district improvement plan as a template and worked from there in order to ensure alignment and that we're all rowing in the same direction. And, you know, one of the charges of the school council is to weigh in on the school improvement plan. Unfortunately, our school council, our newly formed school council has not weighed in yet. They will be, we will be meeting next week, and I would like to provide that council body the opportunity to weigh in on the improvement plan. So there could probably be on objectives and that sort of thing. So the first goal, 1.0, this is where we hear from the school council, and this is where we also provide opportunities for staff voice. Should I be reading these or just provide my own sort of notes on it?
Whichever you're comfortable with.
Okay, goal 1.0, improving professional culture and professional practice. Objective 1.1, in order to improve staff and families' perceptions of the clarity and utility of communications and to increase the perception and reality among stakeholders that they have a voice in the decision-making process. This is what, like I said, this is where we hear from the school council, where they weigh in on it, and this is where we also provide opportunities for staff voice, which occurs through both the leadership groups that we have, 3 leadership groups, the department coordinators, the social emotional leads, as well as the instructional leads, and at our faculty meetings. Objective 1.2, to improve collaboration on teaching and learning between the administration and staff. The MMA and RHS administrators will conduct frequent walkthroughs of classrooms and unannounced observations to ensure that all teachers and staff receive feedback about the performance and the execution of their duties. This began very quickly after the school year started. We're already doing walkthroughs. We're doing walkthroughs on a daily basis. And those walkthroughs are informal. We provide short feedback, but they are not related to the evaluative process. However, we've already also begun unannounced observations, which are part of the contract. And those are a formal part of the evaluation process where we meet with teachers afterwards. So all of that is already in play. And we're really excited about getting that off the ground and having collaboration with teachers around it. 1.3, in order to improve teaching and learning, we will narrow our focus to professional development time to areas of instruction identified through the collaboration between the MMRHS administration and teacher learning leadership, instructional leads, department coordinators, and social emotional leads in the building. This also has begun and will continue throughout the year. You all have heard me talk about rigor. That's something that we focused on in faculty meetings and in PD time. And that will transform and include proficiencies and other things as we move across the year. I meet with instructional leads every week, department coordinators and SELs every other week. They collaborate with me and the other administrators on teaching and learning and the culture and community of the school. Goal 2.0, formalizing the structures and procedures related to the implementation of proficiency-based learning at MMRHS. 2.1, to ensure there is a consistent understanding of and approach to proficiency-based learning by all involved personnel. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and read all these because they really just work together. 2.2, and in order to develop and enhance our understanding of proficiency-based learning as it relates to instruction, teachers will engage in curriculum sequencing and performance indicator mapping. And then objective 2.3, in order to ensure that there's a shared understanding among all staff and across buildings in regard to student expectations, approaches to grading, and indicator review cycles. It really shouldn't, we need to make an amendment there. It should be just among all staff in regard to student expectations. So this is a continuation of work which began prior to my arrival. This is also part of our PD time. Not all departments are in the same place with proficiencies. So what we're doing is we're working to provide time for all departments, but using their expertise to move their department according to the continuum where they're at now and where we're gonna get to. The final goal was something that I heard a lot from a lot of staff, community members about: diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Objective 3.1, promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And 3.2, foster collaborative and inclusive environment that prioritizes diversity, equity, inclusive practices. I don't know if anybody can do something about that slide, so I can read the last part of the sentence, but. Nope.
Oh, wrong one.
Anyway, it's okay.
Who's
And
catching?
to ensure belonging, how about that?
Yes.
I heard, when I got here, I started talking with people and inviting them in right away, staff, community members. And I heard from a lot of people that our DEIB work is incredibly important and should be supported and enhanced. And that's why I included it as part of the school improvement plan. I'm going to be working with the school council on this, which includes members of outside organizations such as the Railroad Street Youth Project and the English language, the LCAP, English Language Parent Advisory Council, as well as our SOB and DEIB advisors to develop plans to move this work forward. It's important that we have all these different organizations involved, as well as community members. So that's my short little snapshot of what's happening with our school improvement plan. Are there any questions? Questions?
Yes.
Under the proficiency-based learning, you talk about tuning of assessments.
Yeah.
And so is that to include proficiency-based grading?
I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
So we are not moving to proficiency-based grading right now. We have habits of work, and that was here before I got here. So right now, let's make sure that we all understand what proficiency-based grading is, what proficiency-based learning is, that we have the targets and everything there. That is a whole separate conversation. Does that answer?
Yeah,
Great.
answers,
All right.
absolutely, thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess my only other question, I feel like we're pretty good about the school improvement plan part in terms of presenting what it is. We're less good about actually checking in at different points throughout the
We'll do
year.
that with both the dips and such this year.
Yeah, so just let's make sure we've got something in place
Yeah, I
for
would
those
love to.
updates to happen.
Yes, I
It's
agree.
good for us all to have accountability. It keeps us in check and make sure we're doing our work, right? And so I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Christopher.
Thank you.
Go further. Jake, you're up. And by the way, this order is by design tonight, because usually the elementary gets kicked on and it has to go first all the time. So we reverse the order, which means as usual, Jake is in the middle.
So next time he has to.
Okay, you're up next.
I'm really sympathizing with one of my brothers as an experienced middle dumb. So looking around the room, I can see there's a few people who are probably in their 50s. And I'm gonna make an assumption that you're familiar with the song "Who Can It Be Now" by Men at Work. Anybody? Okay. My favorite line in that song is, "I'm pretty tired and I'm not feeling right." And that describes me on this Thursday evening, so I will ask you to bear with me if I wander off. We really wanted to use our school improvement plan this year to recognize that Du Bois has an extraordinary group of people doing extraordinary work with the young people in the community who in many ways need the most supportive, expert group of people working with them of anybody in the community. Middle school is a time where students are absolutely spending a good deal of time wondering who they are and what they are about as human beings. Most of you as parents understand that parents spend a good deal of time looking at their children and wondering, who are you? And what are you about? Because you are not necessarily the little one that I remember so fondly from Muddy Brook Elementary days. And so we approach this plan looking at an existing strong culture, an existing strong communication system, and an existing system of teaching a strong curriculum. And so without getting into too much detail, I hope you all do read through the plan. I think it serves as a pretty good vision and foundation for what we believe and how we're going to approach our work. But the plan itself really has three primary goals, and that's to focus on building greater strength upon already existing strength through respecting our faculty and our staff in what we say, the way we say it, and what we do in the way we do it. This means that we are going to communicate frequently, we are going to communicate effectively, and as an administrative team that's built up of, that's comprised of two servant leaders, Ellie and myself, we are going to remember that communication is not just about being heard, but that it is really about listening and about being honest with each other, and sometimes hearing things that we don't want to hear as we all move forward together as a group of adults that comprise the Du Bois Regional Middle School. We are going to focus on building real relationships with our families through frequent and focused communication. Some of that is going to be one-on-one. I've probably met with a dozen different families this week. Ellie has done the same. We will continue to do that. But some of that is written communication, just being really honest with parents about where we are, where the school is, where their children are, and how we can work together to move forward better and stronger. And we want to make sure that in our approach to working with the community's children, that families know and understand that we're honored to have their children come here. People have choices in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. People have choices in South County through independent schools and even boarding schools. We're grateful to have our families here, and we want to show through our interactions with kids and through our conversations about kids that we value and respect the children that we have the honor of serving at Du Bois. Without those children, none of us would have any reason to be coming and doing what we're doing. We would have no reason for a building. We would have no reason to exist. And we want to make sure the way we interact with kids says that to kids and says that to their families, because we think that's the key to building strong relationships that are going to last through 4 years of middle school with our families. And then finally, we want our MCAS scores to reflect the quality of the teaching, the quality of the curriculum, and the quality of our students and families at Du Bois. You'll remember 2 weeks ago, we looked at MCAS data, and the MCAS data for Du Bois had some areas of strength, but it had more areas of, I won't even call them areas of concern, I'll call them areas of challenge. And I do not think that that is because we did not use a high quality curriculum. I do not think it's because we did not have high quality teachers who care deeply. It is certainly not because we don't have wonderful young people who are eager to learn and who want to put their best foot forward on the MCAS test. But I do think it is, and I also said that we won't worship the MCAS, but we will pay it a heavy dose of respect. So our approach to increasing scores and having our scores better reflect the quality of the people that are involved in building those scores is not about the MCAS in and of itself, but it's about real learning. And it's about helping students better understand the test, better understand the reasoning behind it and what's going to be on it. But most importantly, helping our students recognize their own ability to build their own new strengths upon existing strength. And helping our students recognize that they have efficacy. They can dig in and make a difference in their own learning and in how that learning is measured. And that they have power within them. Power to have fun and power to enjoy one another, but also power to do really deep and important things. Listening to Jennifer tonight talk about the dozen students that she had that did a Zoom meeting with an immigration lawyer. That's middle school kids. That's the same kids that are silly at lunch appropriately. And that if you put 5 or more of them together, look like a box of puppies at times, more so than a collection of young people. But those same people do some really deep things. They're reading an incredibly challenging book. They are engaging with an immigration attorney that has been at the border helping kids who are detained and separated from their families. They will be interacting next week with a well-respected author who I know when she comes is going to have a notion of what it's going to be like to work in our middle school, and when she leaves, will have nothing but being impressed for the hours that she got to spend with our kids. So that's really where our plan is going, is just to lay out the philosophical vision for how we need Du Bois to be and to work, and talk a little bit about how we are going to get there and get Du Bois to the place that everybody that comprises Du Bois knows that it can be and will be. So happy to have any questions or thoughts on this plan.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
You answered all of our questions.
Thank you. If you talk long enough, you do that, right?
You've left them speechless.
Yeah.
So I'll be careful about what I wish for next time. I never want to come after Shane. So eloquent, well spoken. Okay, so at Muddy Brook, we also have 3 overarching goals for our community. They as well mirror a lot of the work that's happening at the district level. The first overarching goal is to improve our school culture. And that first goal is around improving professional culture, meaning the staff in my building. A lot of that work is already underway. I do a principal week ahead every Sunday evening. We are working with the SELs, for example, improving the PBIS for students and for staff. And we're just working on sort of high levels of communication, so everybody knows what's going on when, and nobody feels left out. Transparent decision-making process and involving staff input at the building level. That's critical to making sure that the work we're doing is integral to the work that my teachers are doing and that my paraprofessionals are doing, and making sure that those things dovetail well together in order to have people feel like they're part of our community and the good work that we're doing. Normalizing observations and feedback from peers and from administrators. We have an intention of having peer observations. I did put that into the schedule last year and then had to take it out this year. We will certainly have times where we get peers in to observe one another and give one another feedback. I have also already started and been in classrooms observing my teachers, and in almost every classroom, I've had the teacher thank me for being in there, which is really awesome. It's a really nice process. Improving family and community culture. That one of my goals with that was to have my monthly principal tea. I think it's now called Perks with the Principal, which implies coffee and not tea. And so I'm doing that. I have a family newsletter that I'm putting out monthly. I do have a running tab of important dates for families. So really just bolstering up the communication between the school and the family and our community as well. My second overarching goal is proficiency-based learning, and there I am working to bridge the gap between what we now have as standards-based learning and proficiency-based learning. Some of those goals are some of the work we're doing with our report card. Our report card is standards-based, and so we're trying to dovetail that with the proficiencies. We also will be working on analyzing our current curriculum and the gaps that we have in that curriculum. And then my last goal is around piloting a core reading curriculum. I feel like every time I've come up here, I've talked about this. It's really important work, and we have a pilot going, and our staff is very much looking forward to having a scope and sequence that they share with one another, that's research-based, that includes DEIB within the content. And so we're working on that, and that's a heavy lift. I have 10 teachers who are working with me on it, and we're working to relay what we discover with the rest of the staff.
Questions, comments?
With the MCAT scores, just remind me, were there more surprises or kind of challenges on the math side or on the reading side?
On the math side.
Okay.
Yep, but we have a math, new math curriculum.
New for this year?
No, we adopted that with the district 3 years ago. Yeah,
Is that the problem?
I don't know. I didn't work
I mean,
with.
if it was adopted 3 years ago and we've got problems with math scores, is that, I mean, is it fair to draw any conclusion from that set of facts?
So I don't think that you could ever just use one point of data to say, right, this is the smoking gun. I do think that there's such thing as an implementation dip, where when you implement a new curriculum, you can expect scores to go down. And we certainly saw that last year. I was surprised when I saw the scores, 2 years ago. So I was surprised when I saw the scores from last year. There is certainly work to do, and I worked with my instructional leaders on Tuesday, because I meet with them every Tuesday. And so we were having a conversation around math instruction. My professional development on the 23rd is going to focus on our math instruction. And this is all part of making sure that my first goal, where we have a strong school culture, I want to make sure that my staff is communicating horizontally, in other words, from pre-K all the way up to 4, and that they're talking to one another and having opportunities to share their experiences around what students are coming to them with gaps. What are, some of the celebrations that students are coming to them with? What are they finding successes within the curriculum? Where are they seeing gaps in the curriculum? So that's one place to start, and that certainly is where we're gonna start. So we have been doing math work, at our school since I got here. We will continue to do that work. It doesn't though preclude our school from meeting a scope and sequence for reading, which we really need. We did a lot of the heavy lifting last year around getting our staff up to speed with the science of reading, which is that decoding and encoding way of teaching reading. We did all that lifting last year. We really need to buy a curriculum that is going to support that. So we will be doing both reading and math this year. Thank you for asking.
No questions?
I'd like to ask a question, I guess, to all the three principals, and I've just been thinking about it based on what Bill just asked. Is it possible that MCAS is not geared up to what we are adjusting to, proficiency-based learning? It seems to me, in my mind, as a former teacher and a proctor of MCAS, that what MCAS is expecting of us is a little different than what we in this district we're moving toward. I don't think MCAS is designed for proficiency-based learning. And so is it possible that when we talk scores and whether they go up or down or whatever, or depending on the type of student that's taking the test and all that stuff that I talked about when we went through the data night, is it possible that there's a conflict between what the state is asking us to do, which is, and I'm talking from lack of knowledge here, I don't know how many schools are adjusting to proficiency-based learning in the state. And so the majority of schools are the traditional, the standards, the test. You know, as a consultant to the Holyoke School District told me, who I had in class for many years ago, and she visited me and I said, what's your job? And she goes, oh, I've been hired by Holyoke to raise their scores. It's called kill and drill. And that's what we do. We're not doing that. And so is it possible that in this district, MCAS and what we're doing, which I think is wonderful, are in conflict?
Rob was gonna answer this to start with.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'd like to point it to Colin, who has the greatest depth of knowledge about proficiency-based learning, although Christopher too had experience in Vermont where he had worked with proficiency-based learning. But if you could address Mr. Fields'
So I think the unfortunate answer is we can't say definitively. There isn't a huge amount of study on the kind of cross-referencing between MCAS and what it asks students to do in proficiency-based learning in Massachusetts, because it's not an overly widely done system in this state yet. What we can say is that proficiency-based learning as a system is meant to help our students develop skills necessary to be successful as critical thinkers and as effective learners in their classrooms, regardless of the subject, regardless of the kinds of exams that are put in front of them. We want them to be empowered to have skills for success. And so, right, there is an aspect of MCAS that is not based in that. One thing that this year we're really struggling with as we look at MCAS across the district, and I've had this conversation especially with Cynthia, is for some reason the state decided to change their process and they aren't releasing the item analysis data for anything less than 10th grade this year. And that's making it really difficult for us to dig into some of the data points that we've seen in the results this year. We can't actually see what the test questions were this year, and we've been able to see that in years past. So to actually look at, was this a comprehension issue? Was the question itself worded in a way that could have been interpretable, that could have led to students answering in a way that they thought made sense, but isn't what the test was looking for? We're not able to see this year. So anything under our high school math scores are going to be just a little bit harder to dig into. And so what I've been talking to teachers about, what I've been talking with our administration about, and what Beth Cook and I have gotten on the same page about is also incorporating some of the data from our internal STAR 360 math benchmark assessments, where we're then able to still measure students' work against standards as the state has laid them out, but also incorporate that more into our proficiency system to make sure that the skills we're assessing students on in proficiencies are aligned to the knowledge that they are expected to have by standards. So it does take some creative problem solving on our side as we review this data, as we look at how to sync these things up. But overall, you are kind of correct. MCAS does not ask about skills, it kind of asks about rote knowledge. And we as a district have decided to prioritize skills and support students in being successful learners and critical thinkers. And so there is going to be, right, our new curriculum led to an implementation dip. Our new system of learning, of assessing, is probably going to lead to a slight dip as well on scores like the MCAS results, because they are different systems. But the concept of proficiency-based learning, we believe as a district is moving us in the right direction, is supporting our students in the learning that we think is important for them to have. And is that going to be in conflict with state assessments at times? It's possible. As we continue this system and as more districts across the state engage in it, I think we'll get a better understanding of that.
I think I've asked this before, but I've never actually seen the data, so I always forget if it actually happens. But do we go back and capture data, whether it's anecdotal, but from alumni to find out how well prepared they feel, whether they're going into an undergraduate course of study or career, just to kind of get a sense of where they're feeling their high school education got them to?
I'm not aware of any kind of system or structure in place for us to comprehensively do that. It's definitely an interesting concept, and there are ways that we can access that data in a kind of roundabout way. Even Rob and I have talked about some of the data that exists out there that we can review of our students and how many of them entered into 2-year or 4-year college programs, how many of them completed those programs, things like that. But it also requires those institutions to be willing to share that data. So there's always gaps in that. But I don't know that we have any narrative systems.
We actually have the ability, the system that we got access to, we can look at postgraduate outcomes. So you can take a look at the reports that receiving colleges have on students. And typically one of those reports is what did the student require remedial help
Courses.
And so that's a very interesting study, and it's part of Edwin, which is the state database. And so I'm sure it's something that we could dig into with great pleasure.
So for like example, we could ask BCC how many they keep track of how many students who go there have to take that remediation math or English course that they have to pay for, that they don't get credit for, right? So that would be like a great measure of how our students are doing.
You're not gonna know it, I don't think, but why is the state not giving us that data about?
I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sure why they changed it this year.
But it has been a progression. So then what happened was, before I retired, you could look at every item that was used.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long. But yeah, every item was released every year. But that meant the development of other items to replace the items that had been made public. And that became prohibitively costly. So then they started releasing only some of the items. Then now as I've just learned today, actually, that only 10th grade gets this sort of information now.
But you do know for every individual kid what kind of things they failed.
In terms of standards, yes, but that doesn't really help us in terms of understanding.
How it's written.
Right, how it's written.
But it does tell you if everybody fails graphing and gets.
Correct, yes.
Right, that maybe you may not know how they wrote the question, but at least you know.
Right, we have a standards-based assessment of where our students' strengths and areas for improvement lie.
And that you can get an aggregate for all the students, so you're not looking at each individual kid.
Correct.
No, that you can only get for class by class. An aggregate by class, sorry,
Right.
yeah, by class, not by, like, we can't look at the whole 4th grade.
You can't look at the whole 4th grade.
No, you can just look at by teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's, it's still information, it's just not quite as clean, right? You can't just like look at it and say to yourself, oh, I see a pattern here.
But you could put it together if you had 4 4th grade classes, you could look at it.
You could.
Right.
Anyone else?
think Christopher had a hand up.
Good.
I guess I need to come up.
So I just wanted to respond to Bill's, I really don't think that proficiency-based and MCAS testing are at odds with each other. You know, it's, proficiency-based is skills-based. Certainly on the MCAS, we have multiple choice, but also short answer, short response, open response, all that sort of things, which is skills-based, right? These are the things that we're teaching kids in ELA. I think, you know, if we're looking at 10th grade, for example, if you see like, I don't know if you can even call it a trend from one year to the next, but if you see a dip in some area, well, you also have a different cohort, there's that. But I think, you know, what these folks were saying just a moment ago, that's something that's really interesting to me, is to look at an item analysis and say, okay, where, for example, are we scoring the lowest? Well, on which questions? What kind of questions are those? What kind of skills are based in those questions? And then in recognizing, oh, we need to do better work in that area. To me, you know, that's sort of a beginning way to approach it that I think is, you know, intellectually stimulating and certainly worthwhile. You know, when you have to answer, when you have to support your math work with a response, well, that's critical thinking, that's understanding, that's analysis, and that's what we're trying to do with the proficiency base as well as with rigor. So, yeah, that's my response.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fran.
I agree, the proficiency base and what they're assessing on the MCAS, the depth of knowledge for what our expectations are should be even higher than what we think they're assessing our students on. So they should be, of course, able to answer something with a lower depth of knowledge than what the expectations are for proficiency.
Anyone else? Need a motion to approve the school improvement plans?
Are we approving if Christopher still needs to bring it to the school council?
Well, we talk about that.
Yeah, come on up.
They're drafts, I think.
I mean, so we had a moment to meet with Peter Dillon about this, and he recognized that we have school councils that are meeting, and that we very much like to have their partnership and collaboration around this. So I can't remember how he worded it, but it was something to the effect of, can we approve them, but then also recognize that we might want to bring back if there's a change or something like that. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that the nuances, the changes in all likelihood would be, you know, in activities and things rather than objectives. You know, how we're doing what we're doing, for example. So however that can occur, just the main point here, and Corey, I think everybody agrees that, you know, hey, let's give the community opportunity to weigh in as well, right?
You can approve it subject to
The school council.
the school council not making any material changes.
Yeah, the structure is there.
Yeah.
So I have
We
a
have three
motion.
structures, and what a school council would be, because I was on a school council, is they fill in maybe some gaps, they point out some aspects that might,
That's,
in their view, get more emphasis than maybe the school may see, things like that.
that's fair, but I would also, you know, give the respect to the council that it deserves, you know, and if, let's say moving forward, we understand we're getting to the end of the school year, and the council says, you know, Christopher, here's what we really want to focus on, this one thing over here. In that case, they're really informing the development of the set, you know, so, but if there are any major changes, we would absolutely bring it back to school committee.
I think we treat this as a fluid document. As a static
I
document.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's fine for all three of them. There may be changes that need to be made, we're flexible,
Thank
and it's only gonna help the students to allow it, so. So, Bill, I'll take that as a motion,
So moved.
and do I have a second?
Second,
Other discussion?
Bill and Bill.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstention? It's unanimous. Thanks, Corey.
So our next presentation is the pilot report card proposal that is about to see. And get all all these materials are available on the website. Those listening at home can play along.
We will not be voting to accept this tonight. This is the first time we've seen it.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm really grateful to be joined by Sam Ernst, who's going to help talk about this tonight, Jennifer Gehring and Herb Milliken. Folks that weren't able to join us tonight that have been working on this actually for years and years, but with me for 3.5 months, is Allie Fisher and Gail Davis. And we're very grateful to be here. We're here in response to school committee policy IKAB, student progress reports to parents. That's the portion of your policy manual that outlines that the school committee has to approve substantive changes to the reporting system used by schools to parents and families about student progress. And really the transition or the evolution that we're trying to make here tonight is to move full stop in all of our middle school classes to a report card that looks much more like the Muddy Brook Elementary report card than does the Monument Mountain report card. I am coming into this as kind of a neophyte, having sat in this room in an interview, like I said, about 3.5 months ago, and not hitting the PBL question that was given to me as a candidate out of the park. Might have been a slow dribbler down the first baseline. And I'm very grateful to all these folks here tonight and those who can join us for helping be my tutor. Du Bois is not in its first year of making this transition. In fact, last year, I would say probably half of our teachers at least were reporting out on the report card in a proficiency-based learning format. Real kudos to Deborah Spence, who was our guidance secretary, who had to figure out how to make this work in Power School. But we really feel like the time is now to make the transition full stop to a proficiency-based learning report system. Our teachers are all well aware of this. We've been having the conversation since the very first day that we met before our students even came back. We have dedicated many hours of professional development to this and many hours of individual teacher expertise with teachers helping teachers. We don't feel like this is as big of a change as it perhaps seems, particularly given that many families that went to Muddy Brook are going to be very used to the format that we're going to be used for our report cards. We really do believe that proficiency-based learning and grade reporting can significantly improve student engagement and motivation. Some students understand very well what an A means, what a B means, what a C means. Some families understand very well what an A means, what a B means, what a C means. Those tend to be the families that are starting to think about college and university choices when their kids are 2 or 3 years old. The families that aren't necessarily imbued in that life and in that way of thinking, it's much more helpful to have a description of what is your child actually doing and what is your child actually learning. And most importantly, what can your child actually do? And as a dad of 3 kids who we started thinking about colleges almost as soon as they were born, I would have found that really helpful as well as they progressed K through 12 in the Pittsfield Public Schools. Proficiency-based learning and grade reporting can promote deeper learning. Bill, I think this is to your point about the MCAS. Rather than simply memorizing facts and figures, students are encouraged to apply knowledge and understanding to real-world problems. One of the best gifts I've been given as an educator was the opportunity for 8 years in Pittsfield to be the superintendent of a district that had a large and growing vocational program. Vocational programs are proficiency-based learning at work in very real life situations, day in, day out. It's not really important about what mark a student gets on a report card. It's really important about, are they safe? And are they acquiring the skills and the attitudes and the disciplines that will allow them to be great employees in whatever field they are pursuing? And I think all of our students, not just vocational students in the county, deserve that opportunity. The proficiency-based learning and grade reporting system invites more personalized instruction. Students are being tracked on progress against very specific learning objectives, so their teachers can identify individual needs that those students have. So in some ways, this takes some of the best of what we do in the Commonwealth and vocational education. It also takes some of the best of what we do in special education, particularly in terms of individualized learning and teaching for what an individual student needs. And that is a very powerful thing. Finally, proficiency-based learning and grade reporting can improve communication between teachers, students, and parents. I think it takes out this increasingly vague notion of what an A means and what a B means and what a C means. And certainly those of you that have been in classrooms and served as educators know that there is a lot that goes into that A or that B or that C or that D that is not about what a student knows and what they can do. That A through F reflects attendance, that A through F sometimes reflects a family's income and education level, that A through F. And again, I speak from personal experience. I passed 8th grade algebra because I was a great kid. If I do say so myself. And I was scared to death of my mother. If I were really being assessed on what I do and what I could do, I would have been a D to F student on my very best day. But my parents were like, hey, you got a B, great job. And I didn't really realize it then, but I realize now that B was more about me being really good at playing school than it was actually mastering algebra. And I've been paying for that for the remainder of my life. We think this is really worth doing. I am really impressed and grateful to the hearts and the minds of the folks at Du Bois who have really been pushing this and leading on this throughout the district. And I asked Sam particularly to come and talk about the history of this at Du Bois and what's been going on in years past, lest anyone think this is sort of a flash in the pan that let's try this. I'm grateful to Sam for walking through sort of the deeper history of this. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Jake. This has been part of our school improvement plans and district improvement plans since 2019 in terms of proficiency-based learning. I'm really happy to hear that the elementary school and high school have it so prominently in their school improvement plans presently. We've been at the middle school thinking about it since in 2019, it was part of the district improvement plan to start working on that portrait of a graduate. And so proficiencies being part of that work to define what it is to be a successful human being. We've been working with people like the Great Schools Partnership. Dan Liebert was instrumental in helping us design professional development and really give teachers the power to think about their own curriculum and help us define what it is that students should learn and why they're learning it in digestible terms that they can articulate for themselves. As a background, as a K through 12 district, we've been reworking on defining competencies. We did that shortly after COVID to define in each of our disciplines what it is that is the most important thing for students to learn in each of those disciplines. For instance, In math, there's a competency that's abstract reasoning and quantitative reasoning. So these are enduring, lifelong, transferable skills that the entire district has adopted. In the middle school, we've also been designing the performance indicators. These are the parts, oh, I should say that the competencies are what you're going to see on that report card. This is what parents and families are going to see, whether their student is meeting their the expectations of that grade level in that abstract and quantitative reasoning. We've, as a group of faculty and with the lead of the instructional leaders, we've been working to design performance indicators that are kind of the feeders to that, to those competencies. These are the student-facing rubrics that we've been working on, so we can communicate with our students, give them feedback along the way, not just give them a stamp of grade at the end of a marking period, but let them know what they need to still work on. We're continuing to work on our daily learning and curriculum expectations and making sure they match with those broader goals that are K through 12, like those competencies. We're continuing to look for exemplars of that work. We did it last year when we went to visit those schools in Vermont with the Next Gen Learning Challenges, and finding ways that we can refine our instruction to make sure that we're clearly showing students what it is that they need to be working on. And in the past year, the faculty has taken on the idea that, well, maybe those curriculum expectations aren't enough, that there's something else that we need to be assessing that's interdisciplinary. And this was kind of in a parallel evolution to what the high school was thinking about, the habits of work and learning. So in this report card, not only will every student have an assessment of how they are doing in those competencies in their disciplinarian, math, science, art, but they're going to have an assessment from each of those teachers on the habits of work and learning, their ability to be ready for learning, that they're prepared for learning, that they're engaged with learning, that they're looking to seek feedback, that they're looking to overcome challenges in the curriculum, and that they're interacting appropriately with adults and peers. So every teacher will not only report on the competencies of their discipline, but also will be reporting on their HOWLs, the habits of work and learning. So we're continuing to work just like the elementary and the high school on refining our practice. This report card is one step along the way. And a really ancillary part to the more central work of making sure that we're having that good one-to-one communication, teachers and students and teachers with families as to how students are progressing.
Comments, questions? So this is the report.
Right.
Did you run this by parents?
That's a sample of the report card. We will be, the idea has been running by parents for years. And pieces of the report card last year, an alternate report card last year looked very much like that. But not every family received a report card like that for every class, because the school was partially doing PBL, partially not doing PBL.
But I think every student has had a report card that has had proficiency-based reporting on it. It's been in the past 2 years a hybrid between traditional grades and proficiency-based reporting. And this year we're looking, every teacher is going to be doing that. So it'll be a simpler report card hopefully this year.
And in years past, it was up to each individual teacher to opt in or out or decide what they were doing. How does this, because the other thing that's happened, I think, in years past is there was like a student-driven assessment or student-driven report, right, the student conferences, how does that factor into any of this?
I mean, I say it works great with it. You know, we're continuing to plan for student-led conferences that we've been doing in the winter. We're still working on the perfect time for that. But in terms of giving students the ammunition to say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I still have challenges with, we're trying to imbue that language in everyday work with our kids. So I would think that it's going to make those student-led conferences that much more powerful, because we are all working to make sure that the daily work that students are doing relates to these enduring skills that they have for a lifetime.
I see in these categories, there's a box for teacher comment. It's about the size of a pencil point. How do you put comments?
That will grow as teachers put comments in. That's just a sample that's blank, but it, you know, if I have a lot of commentary as a teacher, that box will grow and the report card will grow along with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, because we actually think that
It needs to.
those teacher comments are, for some students and some families, those are every bit as important as reporting out on the progress of the student.
Because I would say, as a parent of previous middle school students, I personally would have preferred to look at something like this as opposed to a number grade and a one-word comment. I'd like to hear from Jason, who I think has kids in middle school, what you think about this or what you're hearing from other parents. But before we do that, I guess I was just wondering, is there any way to kind of characterize what the teacher feedback is on this, especially from the teachers that did not opt to do something like this last year?
I have heard both things. I've heard that it's a lift that's difficult, and I've heard from folks like, I'm so glad you brought up special education, because special education, this is like my field, this is what we do. And I've always felt like the work that I do in special education doesn't really fit a number grade. How am I giving a 90 for a student who's working on decoding? The goal, the feedback that I want to give is you still need to work on learning all the syllable types of reading. You still need to work on open syllable, reading open syllable words. I need to give them that feedback so that they understand what they're working on. And to give a 90 to that doesn't seem effective to me. So there are people that are very excited about it, that are people that are doing it because that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and then Jason.
But you have a grade for Q1, and what's M1?
M1 is the hex schedule thing for exploratories. So there's 6 marking periods for mini terms.
And then this will expand it, because up at the top it says Q1, 2, 3, 4, but will all those grades show up every marking period, or?
I believe they will. We may have some work between technology and our guidance office to make that happen, that they should.
It's gonna be a multi-page.
Yeah, it's gonna be a 3 or a 4 page report card, and by the end of the year, maybe more.
Sarah, okay.
Yeah, I am kind of related. I was just kind of wondering what kind of feedback you're getting from parents about this kind of thing.
We've had, I'll jump into Corey's question and just finish up with teachers. The reason we're coming, I think we have everybody that voluntarily was going to do this is doing it. I think now we are at a point where the leader of the building needs to say, this is what we're doing. Here's the 100 ways we're going to support you. So as Sam said, some buy-in. I have not heard, I have had so many conversations with families about so many things. The way we report out grades is not one of them. And I think that to Bill's question from earlier, after this evening with even though it sounds like this needs to go through two approvals in two different meetings, we will begin to communicate this really more fully to parents, that here's what you can expect to see at the end of the quarter. And of course, we will, as the policy says, it's a pilot because we don't want to etch this in stone forever. If the feedback that comes back from the staff, from the students, and from their families is, this is just too much, or whatever, we want to remain flexible and have the ability to come back and change this. But as Sam said, our families have seen variations of this, and they've certainly seen multiple variations of it, from whether they're coming from Farmington River or Muddy Brook, or joining us from somewhere else via school choice.
To answer Dr. Corey's point, having two kids who were in 8th and 6th grade last year, and talking to a lot of the parents, frankly, I have concerns. I thought the feedback from the proficiency base was worse, significantly worse than the standard grading. I'm not sure if it was just because of the 1 year, other issues. I think in theory, it sounds good. I like how you brought up the special education, the vocational, and that kind of drifts me along to what we did at the high school. We did the leveling up, where those seem to have fewer kids, higher or lower student teacher ratios. And I'm just concerned about the teachers, because I mean, the teachers are great, every single one of them, but are they gonna be able to give adequate timely feedback that this system needs for if they have 20 kids or 80 kids in a grade, right? I mean, if there's one science teacher for 80, are they gonna be able to give this? Number two, grading to me is the way of communicating, the way us as a district communicate with the student and we communicate with the teachers. So, I mean, with the parents, I'm sorry. So basically right now, I mean, we have 3 report cards a year. The 4th one of the year is already over. So the communication that goes in between report cards, like, are we gonna get a once a week update from every teacher? How is that gonna be? I mean, I don't think we can wait until the first quarter's ended and really 3 shots. So I guess that communication, which I guess could be incorporated in, that we didn't see frankly last year in these classes, I think needs to be done better. My other point is, and I don't know if Colin wants to answer, why aren't we doing everything in here already with just a number grade at the top or a letter grade? I don't see why this shouldn't have been done for the last 10 years. You have a 93 and then boom, all this, or you have an 88, boom. I don't see why this has to be mutually exclusive. Again, having said that, I mean, I trust Sam, Bert, I mean, we have, and you, really happy you're here. So I mean, I'm willing to give it another go this year. But I really think communication, from us, the district, to the parents, to the students, not just on the report cards, but, on a weekly basis. We really need to stress that to make sure. And I really want to get a feedback, as Corey alluded to, the teachers who weren't choosing to do it before this year. And is it going to be too much? Because I mean, we learned that at the high school where, it sounded great in theory, but these poor teachers were having to, triple, quadruple the work. So I don't want to put any extra stress or burden, and I want to make this something that the teachers can, every teacher, not just the 40, 50, 60, 70% that are in it, but the 30, 40% who don't. I mean, they count, and they matter to me too. So I want to support them and to make sure that they're supported going forward and helping them navigate this, being able to communicate with the students, communicate with the parents, and make it successful. Because again, I mean, I think it can be a successful system. I think, like everything else, it's student-teacher ratio. So I mean, I think, we have to be realistic about that. But I mean, I'll support it for a year. And again, we have great people, the staff, everyone's here tonight. Jake, I have complete confidence in your ability. So I'm willing to give it a shot.
All of that as feedback was really helpful, particularly coming from a current parent. And I think it's something we can share, really all around. And we have, I think, a year of doing it and really supporting the folks that held off. Some folks just didn't understand it. I think some folks, rightfully so, I might have been one of these people when I was a teacher, were like, I am probably gonna outlast this principal. I'm probably gonna outlast this. Peter's proven wrong as a superintendent, given the tenures of superintendents across the state. But I think this year will be this is a really crucial year to see, can we actually make this work across all of our disciplines? And I think there's some people who day one of school were really hesitant and actually afraid of this, not like afraid, but afraid of their own ability to do it. And that's where we opted to say, we're going to dedicate professional development time, including faculty meeting time, including half days, to making sure that if you're someone that feels like you're starting at 0 altitude and need to get to the top of the mountain, that you have the support you need. If you're somebody that's halfway there, to me, that's one of the challenges of implementation of anything new is, here it is, bless you as you go forth and do it, have a nice day. We're kind of putting our money and our muscle where our mouth is on this one and making sure that people have the support to get there. And I think we'll know I think we'll have a much better vision of this in June as to, is this going to continue to be a path forward? Which is why we're asking for a 1-year pilot to look at it. But thank you, all of that feedback was helpful for giving us, supporting some of the places we're going, but also nudging us to some of the places we need to go.
One of the things, and I'll maybe be repetitive, is I was glad to hear you, Jake, say that it's up to the leader of the building to implement this and do it. I don't know, I've been here a long time. I've never heard of a voluntary program. Either you do it or you don't. And if you let the kids say, you don't have to do your homework tonight, it's voluntary. And I've never heard anything like this. So you're stuck with the poor implementation, and I'll say it, of what we've been trying to do, because some teachers are doing it, some, no rhyme or reason, like you haven't picked out, we're gonna do it in English, we're not gonna do it in math. It's just voluntary. Well, it doesn't work that way. Everyone's gotta be, there's gotta be buy-in. And there wasn't apparently buy-in because maybe we didn't try to get it. So it's not because it's a bad idea. It sounds like it's a pretty good idea. The more you explain it, the more articulate discussion is, it sounds like it could be a really good idea. But now you're stuck with what I think was a poor implementation. And I'm not criticizing anyone, it just is the way it is. And the other thing that was brought to my attention, which again is not your fault, it's about implementation. IKAB says major changes in reporting systems shall be preceded by a cooperative study and evaluation by teachers, principals, parents, and the superintendent will submit the proposal to the school committee. I know this is a pilot, but we skipped about 4 of those. And again, we have a policy, and sometimes we get frustrated, and some of my predecessors used to get really frustrated. The policies look good, but we just ignore it. Yeah, there's a policy, but we didn't like that paragraph in the policy, so we didn't do it. It was too hard, or it wasn't gonna work. So I think we all wanna work with you. You wanna make this work, because it's quite honestly, it sounds like it's best for the kids. But I think this is a good year for us to, many times you come to us and say where you are and how the buy-in is coming and how we're gonna do this. I don't think we were briefed on this at the right time. I don't think the parents were. I'm not sure the kids were. Now maybe it's happening, but there's catch up to be done. That's all.
Yeah.
Can I just say that, I just want to remind everybody that this is part of the proficiency-based learning that we're doing and that we're working towards. it's a small part, it's an important part. Communication is really important. To your point, Jason, that communication with students and families is through PowerSchool. And PowerSchool is a system that doesn't love proficiency-based learning, doesn't love rubric-based assessments. But we have, I think, successfully trained our staff to do the workarounds necessary to make PowerSchool not only reflective of that summative assessment at the end of the quarter, which you're right, is not enough, but formative assessments. There's a lot of click-throughs that you've got to do in PowerSchool, which is unfortunate, in order to see whether your student, whether your child has been meeting the expectations of the daily learning targets and the performance indicators. But it is something that at least we've trained all our teachers in, so that's working out. And making that readily understood by parents is something that is a work in progress, I think. And just to address your other point about making it the work digestible for teachers, one of the things that we are trying to do is to take the judgment out of assessment and instead make it more objective by creating rubrics that are effectively assess across many different things that students might do in a day, so that it's hopeful that we are creating rubrics that teachers can use and reuse. And so hopefully, I'm hopeful that it makes people's lives easier as teachers to communicate how kids are doing.
So you think that's doable for teachers to be able to do a thorough evaluation for each of their students on a regular basis?
I mean, that's the feedback that we're getting as instructional leaders, that like, we're not having people, there are questions of, well, so how do I fit this daily learning target into the broader scope of performance indicator or of into the scope of lifelong skills? And that's kind of that's the big challenge that we should be addressing. Are these things that you're teaching on a daily basis important enough to be feeding that lifelong skill? So yeah, it's a challenge. I'm feeling like people are meeting that challenge and still working on it.
Okay, great, good to hear, thanks.
Couple other questions, just jotting things down as you're talking. So first one, given what sounds like the limitations of PowerSchool for this, are there plans to look at other software?
I don't believe there are plans to look at other software necessarily. There are certainly schools in New England and schools in Massachusetts that have really, PowerSchool is very much a system of components. There are components that we could purchase that would make it much more organic and doable. There are schools in New England and again in Massachusetts that have found workarounds that are really elegant and rather simplistic, to enact. So we don't see any of this as forcing the district's hand on anything of, oh, we need a new student management system, or everybody.
If we need it, we budget for it. I'm not against that. I'm more concerned about trying to jam a square peg into a hole.
And thank you for asking that question, because it's crucial, and it's especially crucial as we approach budget deliberation time. But I do think there are add-ons to PowerSchool that could make this much more doable and much more seamless than right now trying to fit a squarish peg into a very roundish hole.
So another one, obviously you came to this as the proposal to us, so that's where you've landed, but any pros and cons of implementing this and rolling it out one grade at a time? Like, did that ever kind of enter into your thoughts and considerations?
That is going to keep us in the same really challenging space with Power School. Power School is much simpler. It's a much simpler bit of calculus to do one thing or another thing. Also, I mean, here's the thing, I'm a new guy in town. I don't know if I'm gonna be here for 5 years, or people may have had enough of my voice.
I think like the opposite, we need to talk about that. We want you here for 5 years.
But I mean, the district has had this in its district improvement plan for 5 years. So I'm sort of, as Steve said, I'm sort of stepping in. My inclination is to gain support through making the case and empowering people to make a change. I think we are at a point at Du Bois where now somebody has to say, we are making the change. That last percentage of people that just didn't, couldn't, wouldn't, there's no judgment, I get it. I think we are at a critical mass where it just makes sense to do this full stop.
And do you have a sense of measurements, like it talked about, okay, pilot program, so that indicates that we're gonna reflect. What looks like success, what looks like failure?
Yeah, I think what looks like success is that our students and the families, I mean, as I said with the school improvement plan, the only reason we're here is to serve students and to help them learn and to help them grow. So I think that feedback from students and from families, we will have, you know, if it's a 1-year pilot and we go away from it, I don't think we have enough. I hope we can extend that because I think we need 2 or 3 years. I think we need to see MCAS. I think we need to see what monument looks like for grades 9 and 10, like for our current 7th and 8th graders. It is what we're doing, translating to up on the hill for the good of kids so that it translates better into what's next for them. And then really formally gathering feedback from our families about, is this helpful? Is this helpful in parenting your child academically?
So for expectation setting, it's really more than a 1-year pilot, which is okay, but I think we should say what it is.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a timeline, just so that 2 years down the road, you'll still be here, but some of us may not.
Yeah.
So it kind of says, okay, this was the plan when this was approved. This was not a quick fix. It wasn't gonna happen in 6 months.
Yeah.
That this is what we're looking at and this is how we measure it.
I would think that, I was envisioning it in some ways as a series of 1-year pilots perhaps, but as one of our IL people reminded me tonight, who's not here, there's a lot of pilots. We've been piloting this since 2020, or since we got back from COVID, at least, and back in in-person school. The reality, Corey, though, is you're absolutely correct. In order to get the data that we really need to get, it needs to be a 3 to 4 year look at this.
And that's an honest assessment instead of throwing it out after all this work in 1 year, when it's not ready to be called a success or a failure.
Yeah.
That makes sense, as long as everyone's on board.
Well, the beauty of a 1-year pilot is you come back to us at the end of the year and tell us what's worked and what isn't.
Well, I think you can do that with a 3-year pilot, and it's just built into it that every 6 months we'll come back to the school committee with an update. Yeah, I think you're right, though. Again, communication, so important in our district improvement plan, in school improvement plan. Come back to us, we want to hear it.
And follow-up.
Yeah.
The communication of follow-up is crucial.
Yeah, and after a year, you may say, all these things worked, this didn't, this is where we're changing. Great, that's why it's a pilot. Yeah. Anyone else?
I just like to say, and it's based on this Power School thing, I was just thinking, I can't believe that we're making this transition and we're gonna allow a piece of apparatus to stop us. That's insanity to me. This is good stuff that we're doing,
the direction we're moving in is good, and we're gonna allow Power School to dictate? No, you can't do this. It's almost like what I asked before about MCAS and where we're moving. Yes, there are gonna be some problems because the state doesn't see what we're doing yet. We're holding them off. Same thing here. I don't wanna hear that we can't do this because of Power School. Then make Power School or change to a new program on the finance committee. Maybe we need to look at a new program. My other comment is, and Jake, when you talked about your algebra experience, I had the same thing in my school. We were graded on a grade and also effort. And I worked my tail off and got a 5 in 3 years of math. I never passed math, but I did because I got a 5 that was then given a 70. And, you know, I don't think I'm a failure for that. I worked very hard, but that, you know, I kind of gamed the system. And we want to recognize that
Yes.
work through
Yeah.
Howells.
Yeah.
But we
And you don't do that with just a 70.
Right.
And I think there's the other block that I've seen is that there are teachers who are graduating. I don't know what the schools of education are doing in regards to proficiency based, but we're probably getting teachers who have been trained 15 years ago in the old standards. And you know, well, how do you grade? I remember a curriculum course I took. How do you grade? It was just, you know, oh, A, B, well, and then when I started to teach, I would get students like Jason. What does an A mean? Mr. Fields, what is 90, what did I get to get a 93? Can you tell me? And then, of course, I was from a department that started to do rubrics and all this proficiency based because we started to write. And when Jason would come, I didn't have you as a student, but you know, students would come, sit down and say, well, what do I need to work on? You gave me an A- with all these things. And I'd say, okay, well, let's, so, you know, I just don't want to hear Power Schools preventing us from doing this.
Rob wants to say something, then Diane.
I think it would be very helpful to consider Jake's concepts of the workarounds, because the change of the student information management system is at least a 2-year undertaking. And even then, you might remember when we changed from Redeker to Power School. It was a nightmare. It was, and it just requires a great deal, it requires multiple years of work to actually make an effective change between that. So I think that the preferred approach would be to find some workaround using Power School, because essentially everything we keep in Power School, we keep, basically every bit of data for the district.
And does that take time to figure out those workarounds, or is that something that we just figure out?
We have the workarounds to do a report card, like the sample report card you saw right now. There are workarounds that can clean that up, make it simpler, maybe make it more readable. And we even have some workarounds of our own, tweaks of our own to make it more readable, so that a parent is not, or guardian is not overwhelmed upon seeing, okay, that's a lot of stuff.
And to make it as not overwhelming for the teachers as possible.
And to not make it overwhelming for the teachers.
That's been the work of the instructional leadership
Okay.
group. Jen Karen, a shout out to Jen, because she's done a lot of work with the IT department to make this as an easy lift for the rest of the faculty as can be.
If some of the teachers are doing it and it's been around that long, can you evaluate what those classes feel like to you, to the students, to the teachers, the feedback? Can you see a difference between the teachers who are using it and not?
I don't know if we can or not. So personally, I don't know, but hypothetically, if we have had teachers that are doing it for multiple years, we might be able to you know, whether it's through surveys or even looking at performance data, see that. It's an interesting point.
I'd really like to see that. I'd be willing to come and, I came last year and came into some of the 7th grade classes and saw some of it in action, but I'd really like to be able to see it in action.
Yeah.
To know if it really works. It's a lot of effort to put in for a teacher. if it's not gonna work.
One of the things we found at one of our faculty meetings, and it might have been a meeting that we did, I can't remember if it was our first half day, or if it was just one of our 1 hour faculty meetings that we dedicated to doing this, was several teachers in the room who felt like this was going to be this much of a lift. Really, after 10 or 15 minutes of working with somebody like a Jen or a Burr or a Sam, found that it was really this much of a lift. It was sort of like, oh, this isn't as bad as it's like we all do human nature. Our assumption about how bad it's going to be is often much worse than the reality. So the model of having, these folks will bristle at this language, but the value of having experts on our faculty, helping people who are aspiring experts on our faculty, has been very evident just in the few months I've been here.
I would say it's more a Zen mind, beginner's mind kind of thing, that we're all feeling like, this is part of the reflection of teaching, to be able to really think about what is the importance of the things that I'm doing in my classroom, and how am I going to assess that so that it looks the same in my classroom as it would in my colleagues. So I feel that this is kind of the work that I want to be doing as a teacher, because it is so reflective and, admits that we're not masters of curriculum. We are, we're raising kids, and raising kids is messy work, that we need to keep thinking about how we're doing it.
I think what we have seen already that is really clear is that this work has led to, I think, a lot more reflection and teachers getting together to make sure that the experience from one classroom to the next classroom is a similar high-quality experience, and that the assessments are similar high-quality assessments. Even looking ahead to the half day that we have upcoming in about a week and a half, and the November 5th full PD day. We have requests for people who really just want to spend time together as a grade level team or as a vertical team of like ELA teachers or social studies teachers to, I think it's kind of a backdoor approach in some ways, but it's really leading to a much tighter, more focused, more rational scope and sequence of what gets taught and where and how, and then how it's assessed. So that is something that is just measurable by the way people are spending professional development time to move forward with this. And this is the vehicle. The reason they're doing it is this. The fact that they're doing it benefits kids as they take the 5 through 8 climb without question.
Is there one for Christopher? I mean, you said earlier that your school improvement plan very specifically does not address proficiency-based grading. But is the idea that at some point this moves into the high school?
I think it's, I just got here. It's a little premature. There's a lot that goes into that as it relates to the way that colleges look at transcripts, et cetera. And we don't want to mess that up. I know that we were doing it in Vermont when I was there. People had different opinions about what exactly went through the evaluation process of by colleges of a student who had a proficiency-based report card. So certainly that is, on the horizon, to have discussions about it, but that's not something we're gonna take lightly, for sure. Okay? Is that reasonable?
Just had one more question. You probably won't be able to answer this tonight, but at some point, out of the 16 core subject, English, science, math, social studies for the 4 grades, how many chose to do this system last year? Do you know that, or could you get that?
We can certainly get that. I don't know if anybody here tonight knows that. It's a great question.
So we're gonna have you come back.
Majority,
Yeah.
I'd say a solid majority, I'm pretty sure. I think there was, yeah, I wanna guess 70%, but that's, you can test me on that, we can look that up and.
But we can
Test
figure
my
it out.
knowledge.
That's not a terribly.
We'll work on when you're gonna come back, whether it's next meeting
Okay.
after that. We've obviously brought up a lot of things that maybe you wanna talk about with a little
Yeah.
more preparation.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we'll move ahead. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Well, we are 105 minutes into the superintendent's report with no end in sight. With no end in sight. So we actually have, I feel as though we should do a 7th inning stretch, and I'll sing Sweet Caroline for you while we do that. Yeah, the difference, we have a very brief, MCAS update. Essentially, Peter Dillon published a more detailed analysis of MCAS data at the September 26th meeting. And Colin Schubach is here to deliver with 54 slides. I'm not kidding.
I'm not going slide by slide, don't worry. I'm just gonna give you kind of a high level overview of what's in here. It's in relation to the request we got for more MCAS data, so I just tried to kind of cut it together. So I'm just gonna give you an idea of what you're looking at, and then hopefully, and unless there are questions, which I'll of course be happy to answer, walk away from the table to let you wrap this up and review anything if you're interested in your own time. Open invitation always stands. If you want to dig into MCAS data or anything else, I'm happy to talk about it anytime. Obviously 54 slides, and this was like nothing for me. I can go deep if you want to go deep, but 8 o'clock tonight, I don't think is the time to do it for any of our sanity.
You're a good judge of people.
So there were a couple of requests, and so that's what I tried to put together for you. So the biggest chunks, and I know 54 sounds overwhelming, but the biggest chunks are really just 3 topics presented in a couple of different comparative ways, so you can really see the data in a way that makes sense and might raise questions that you want to dig further into, either in a future meeting or, like I said, in offline kind of conversations about this stuff. So as we start, 10th grade was specifically something that was requested as a comparison across the county over time. So if we start with ELA, right, and all 3 sections of the 10th grade starts with just a data table. If you just like the numbers and don't want to get into the visual of it, that's what we start each section with. Before I get into 2 forms of visual breakdowns of the data for you. So the first is a year-by-year graph. If you'll click now. You gotta actually pay attention if you're gonna be my slide master. Come on. So I just took the data that was in that table, broke it down, so you've got 4, then 1 for each year. So you can see at any moment in time where we were in comparison to the other schools or districts within the county. But then to kind of take it into a progressive way so you can really chart it across the time instead of having to compare against these 4 graphs.
What do those numbers mean?
Sorry, that's the percentage of students who are considered meeting or exceeding on the MCAS. So, and the same set of data, it's what's on that initial chart. If you actually go back 1 real quick, Rob. This is each of the districts, what percentage of students are combined meeting or exceeding in any given year, and this is for ELA, and then I've broken it down for you for math and science as well. So if you jump forward 2 now. This is the kind of progressive line chart over time, and what I meant by it's a clump of slides that all represent the same. What you can see here is I've just highlighted ourselves as a district, and then the state, we are the kind of bigger dotted dashed line, I guess, and the state is the dotted line. And you can see the muted lines behind are all of our counterpart districts and schools in the county. And then from here, what it is basically a series of slides that highlight each of those schools or districts specifically. So I don't know if there was a specific comparison anybody was looking for, but I wanted to make sure you had that if there was a certain district or school you wanted to compare us against. So for instance, if we go to the next one, it's Bart, and Rob can just kind of cycle through quickly and you'll see the different lines highlight. The interesting thing, and this is something that could be done in an offline conversation or a future meeting, I've programmed it so that initial slide that had just us and the state is a live one. So if you wanted to see 3 different districts compared to us and the state, then I can just quickly activate that on the spreadsheet and it will update on the slides for you. So instead of looking at them one at a time, if you wanted a grouping compared against us, it's just something that's able to do right here on these slides for you. So this is our ELA results, like I said, compared against our counterpart districts and schools in the county. And then we would move into math unless there are specific questions on the ELA data at this time. Cool, math, same process. I start with the data table, us in bold, we have the same list of schools and then the state overall. And then the same dual representation, the first being the 4-year charts, broken down year by year. And then we get into the progressive line graph that once again shows us as the dashed line, the state as the dotted line, and can just give you that comparison against all of our counterpart schools and districts in case there's something specific you were looking for as your comparison. Once again, that initial one live chart, so I can edit that with a click of a button to make it any kind of group comparison you want, if it's not just one school or district at a time you're looking for.
Can you go back to the very first slide for math? Just stay on that slide for just a few more minutes.
So which one?
Right there.
Oh, sorry.
No, that
That one?
Yeah.
So Lee, I heard the gasps at Lee.
Mhm.
And Lee had a banner year last year.
Do we know why yet?
I don't know specifically why,
Southern Berkshire did pretty well.
Sorry,
Yeah.
was that one?
Could have a
grade
cohort.
level, or that was the?
This is all 10th grade, yeah.
Right, okay.
So
I mean, it
I
could
know
be-
at our last meeting, I think it was Bill brought up, sometimes school districts just have these cohorts of students, they
Right.
test well, they do well. I'm not familiar enough with Lee's structure, maybe there was a staffing change, maybe there was a curriculum change. I can definitely ask some questions to see if we can better understand if something happened last year that we could learn from and kind of make note of, that we could incorporate into our own practice. That's definitely information we can get if we're interested in having that.
And Central Berkshire made a big jump too, and Southern Berkshire actually, so.
And an important part to recognize also is the actual size of the sample.
Yeah.
Southern Berkshire has a very small sample. So I just, that's, some of these jumps could be attributed, Lee has a very small sample.
Central Berkshire is more of our size.
Central Berkshire is right around our size, Greylock's our size. So essentially, you're, yeah, as with all data, you can send many ways to read it.
Okay, great, thanks. You can go on.
Shall I continue that?
If you fly through math, then we just have the same structure. So like I said, 54 sounds like a crazy number, but we're moving and grooving here, not cool.
Yeah, we're already at 10.
So 10th grade science, once again, same process of cutting it together with just the numerics to start. Once again, for science, we have a shorter kind of time span. We only have the 3 years as compared to the 4 years, but still able to cut it together.
Can you just go back a second?
Of course.
So, just so,
Sorry.
so 2 years ago, we went from 74 down to 68, down to 62.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're trending, okay, and then.
22 was the year Elsa and Beth,
What's that?
that was the year that Elsa and Beth team taught.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Also the different cohorts.
Yeah.
That makes it
Right,
problematic.
it is very important to keep in mind, there are a number of factors that influence these changes, whether they're increases or decreases in our district, other districts. There is no one size fit all answer to explain any adjustment, any kind of change in these. And that's why having these kinds of conversations is really important, just so we can be open to and discussing all the factors that lead to these changes.
Well, the reason I bring this up is we've clung to science as our biology, as our look at what we're doing. In 2022, we were 74, blood went out of the water. Last year, we declined, but we were still top. And now this year, you know, we're doing the same type of leveling up, whatever, but there's 1, 2, 3, we're fourth. So, you know, again, as you say, it could be a 1-year thing, a 1-year blimp, a car haircut, but I think it goes to show that we don't want to get too excited on positives early to say, look at how great we're doing on a 1-year snapshot. And I think this year, we don't want to look at it saying, look how poorly we're doing, or, you know, it could be just the cohort themselves. So I think, as you said, longitudinal 5-year plan, 3 to 5 years, is what I want to see. And these graphs, I think, are great to show how we are, over a 3-year span. And the more data we get, the better we'll have an idea of it. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Jason. When MCAS first came out, there was always a call after 1 or 2 years. Something's wrong with the curriculum. We need to throw money at the curriculum. It was 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
But there are always people who just, it's gotta be the curriculum. And you're right, you gotta look at a longer series before you make those decisions. I mean, look at where Lee went in 3 years.
That might be, yeah, but at what point, like, how many years do we look if it continues to downtrend?
We actually have, we have a sort of a limit on this because of COVID. There's basically, we don't have that much, we can't go back too far because the data was all fairly useless. For 2020, there was nothing in 2020. 2021 was also not particularly reliable. So I think that's why college shows in 2022.
Right. And you don't also know what the district itself has done. As I said earlier, Holyoke wanted to raise his score, so brought in people who killed and drilled. And that's what they did from elementary. I talked to an elementary principal. She left. She said that's all she was being demanded, was raise the scores, and this is what you're gonna teach.
Isn't that when the state comes in though, usually, like in a.
That was under a
right?
receivership,
Yeah.
but they based it all on scores and their whole teaching. So you could, I won't take any schools there, but what is their method of teaching? And what standards are they using?
Well, did we kill and drill in 2022? Is that what we did?
No.
I mean, that's what I'm sure everyone would say about us. When we had the 7-4.
Well,
It goes both ways.
Oh, the 7-4, yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that I think an interesting conversation, we could have talked, I'd like to comment on the days too. I think it'd be interesting to bring these data to the other superintendents. Because this would be an interesting question. I every year, for some reason, just share MCAS data for every grade with every district. Had it, I had to do. And so I think, but this actually is far more valuable with a 3-year span. And I just think it might be helpful if, Jake, what do you think the likelihood of getting the superintendent's roundtable to something like this?
I think they would love to take a look at this. And
I'll offer Colorado.
there you go.
Happy to do.
You're gonna sell your slides, or macros that you created.
Those are very cool slides.
Yeah.
He's got it down. He's a lot of fun.
It's like Fidelity stock.
This is what I do late at night, once the baby's in bed. I just cut together some data and have some fun with it.
When he's not doing this, he's doing Dungeons and Dragons or escape rooms.
Rob's just jealous.
Oh, yeah, I wish I had thought of this.
And if you want to meet with both Colin and Rob, plan a weekend.
I need like a April vacation. So once again, the graphs of the 3-year and then the line, just so you can make those comparisons, live chart. If you're looking for something specific, I'm happy to program it however you want. And then I know 10th grade was what was asked for, but just as we have these big picture conversations, I thought it was important for us to just recognize and look at the data across, especially as we start working on what we told you we would be working on last time, the kind of cohorted data as they progress through the grades and what that kind of result looks like. So I cut together just not 12 slides on each of these for you, kept it simple to just 3 for the 8th grade and 2 for the 4th grade. But it just has the 4-year comparison in our 8th grade ELA. So you can take a look at that, then our math and science for 8th grade as well. And then I did the same for 4th grade for you. So you can take a look at their math and ELA, 4th grade, not taking the science one.
And don't tell him to get a life, because he actually has a good life. He's busy with this stuff.
And then just to wrap it up, the other request in addition to the over the years was the by gender. So I cut together both the full district across the last couple of years and then the 10th grade specific, because that seemed to be a focused request last time. And so what you see is the numbers are representative of the 2024 cohort. If you're wondering how many students we had identifying as these genders across the years, I can definitely get you that data, but just to give you at least an initial comparison. So when it says N 273 for male, that's how many males in the district, how many students identified as male in the district that took the test in 2024 specifically. That's not the total number across all the years, that's just 1 year's cohorted number for you.
And that's in grades 3 through.
The full district is every grade that took, so this is math, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then our 10th grade. But then it does transition after doing ELA math and science with the full district's numbers into just specifically 3 slides on the 10th grade. Once again, the numerics are just based in the 2024 cohort. You can see that the words and everything are a little blurry. I literally had to take the same graph 3 times, delete the background out of it so it was transparent and overlay it on top of each other as best as I could, using the states line as close as I could to line these things up for you. Once again, this is what I do for fun. I love this kind of thing. Happy to cut together any data set you're looking for. If you want to see it, I'm happy to bring it to you. So like I said, I just wanted to give you the overview of what's in here. These slides are going to be available to you and available online in the packet for those of you watching at home. So feel free to take some time to review it and dig in. And as always, any questions I'm happy to answer now, or if any questions pop up when you're reviewing it in the future, please let me know. I'm happy to address them, get you more information, get you other data sets, whatever it is you're looking for. As Dr. McCandless put it earlier, we are servant leaders and happy to help and provide you whatever you need.
This is great. Any questions?
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you so much.
I actually have one more request for him going forward. I know it's long, but I was wondering, it came up already, if you can get a list of high schools and middle schools that are full proficiency-based learning in Massachusetts. If you know of that list, if you could get that, I would just like to, I mean, even their MCAS scores, but we'll start with the list first. Doesn't have to be for next
Are you
week.
seeing a trend toward this, like a quick trend, or is it a slow trend? Or is it not trending toward video?
I don't know that I could classify the trend. I don't know that I, at this moment, have enough data. Even going back to talking about platforms, I attended the Mastery Transcript Consortium symposium, try and say that 5 times fast, last year with some high school staff members, because we wanted to hear about their mastery-based platform, which allows you to basically build out report cards for high schools specifically is where they're focused. They are expanding it. So it is something that as we progress in this, we can always look at for district-wide. But they started at the high school level, and it's about building out student records that are not numerically based at all, but instead based in proficiency and competency-based systems. And we met a number of schools there that are working on this. Because it's not a statewide initiative necessarily like Vermont, where everybody had to kind of get into it or else, basically, there's a number of approaches. So even in terms of a full proficiency-based learning within the schools, I think what I'm going to end up getting for you is more kind of the schools that are at different points in the spectrum of how to approach it. We spent some time, the staff from the high school and myself who were there talking with Nipmuc High School, their Mendon Upton's regional district high school. And they really decided to start with the HOWLS, that was habits of work and learning, and make sure they were getting that system as close to perfect as they could before they expanded it into their academic structures, which is one approach. And they had some positives to share on that approach. They had some concerns about how long it was taking to then go into the full kind of system within rolling it out in their academics. But so when it comes to the HOWLS, they're kind of further along than we are, and that's a conversation that we found really engaging and interesting to learn from their experience, learn from how they've rolled it out, how they've communicated on it. So while they're not necessarily in a full proficiency-based learning system, they are further ahead than we are in the process in certain parts and kind of not engaging in it purposefully in other parts. So I think as I try and compile this list for you, that's what it's going to end up being more. I don't know offhand of another district in Massachusetts that is full in K through 12 in every subject, in every habits of work and learning, which I think, and I apologize, I don't remember who asked the question of, have we considered rolling it out in one grade before we move it through the grades? I think we're gonna see school systems doing it like that, which kind of lends itself to the middle school piloting before we talk about how to implement. I think we'll see things like the habits of work and learning or the academics. I think we'll see people who were really focused in on the portrait of a graduate first. I think because it's such an open-ended system, everybody's choosing to approach it in what makes the most sense for their districts, for their schools, and doing the work necessary to make it work and figuring out what those steps are along the way to take those next kind of pieces and roll them out. So I'm gonna just, if the slides are any indication, give you as much information as I can gather for you, and hopefully that leads to some great discussion that might lead to more questions, which then I'm happy to get you that information as well as we go, but I can definitely start working on compiling this list and just clarifying where all these different districts are at with the process for it.
I don't really need to know where they are, I just wanna know a list of who's gone full proficiency-based learning for high schools and who's gone full proficiency for middle schools. Whether it's 0, whether it's 50, whatever one, keep it simple. Thanks.
But in general, I would say, it's safe to say though, this is, all of the things we're doing are things that the state is encouraging districts to try, because that's where our grant money to implement a lot of this is coming from, correct?
Yeah, I think there's, especially having seen what our neighboring states have done, there's definitely an interest at the state level in this. I think as a state, right, Massachusetts is very proud of our education system. And so that's why we might see it from DESE being a little bit of a slower progression in terms of they want to make sure they're going to get it right. If you look at some of our neighboring states who have engaged this in a statewide process, there's been a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back to correct things that didn't go right, or even 2 steps forward, 3 steps back because they realized it really was flawed when it rolled out the way the state did it. So I think there's an interest, there's definitely a movement towards this at DESE. But I think it's also we want to make sure we're getting it right because Massachusetts is, as we rightfully should be, very proud of our schools and our education system, and anything they do, we like to try and do right, I'll say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, so that was 2 hours and 16 minutes for superintendent's report. I was hoping.
This is important stuff, I mean, we're making decisions for the district that no one else in the state is making, so I mean, I'll spend 5 hours here. I mean,
I agree.
These are important for our kids, for our future, so.
Yep, no, you're right. So moving on to subcommittee report, policy.
What about this? We got this little thing saying that there's a new report card for the.
Oh, no, I made a mistake. Oh, that was, I think that Cynthia brought that in on, when she was talking about the school improvement plan.
We don't have, where's the
Yeah.
report card?
Can we put this on the agenda for the next meeting and ask her also to bring in a sample of what the old report card looked like as well as the new one?
New one was over there, right?
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
That was just the middle school.
No, it's just the middle school, you're right. Yeah, it'll be on the next one.
Thank you.
Okay, subcommittee, policy has a date.
Yes, we do. It is October 16th, 4 p.m.
Perfect. Buildings and grounds. Thank you. Superintendent's evaluation will be at the next meeting, and we might as well go here at the next meeting.
Can I ask for another request for future?
Yes.
Can we get an update from Peter and Jake on the DOJ Spirit program?
Yeah, you got it.
Well, let me just get all this. So I'm moving slowly. So if I could have the requests again right now, I'll write them down.
So the first one was the
First report card,
Money Brook report card, to talk about it, but to have examples, supporting examples of old and new.
That hasn't gone through any process either, so it's.
Next.
DOJ Spirit update.
DOJ Spirit
Okay.
update, yes.
That's it right now. So next meeting, we're gonna start at 5:30 with a school committee meeting, which will have the evaluation on it. And then at 6 o'clock or after the meeting ends, the finance subcommittee will meet, do the elementary school, middle school, and high school discussion for next year's budget. So everyone's encouraged to stay if you can. If you can't, we understand. Finance subcommittee did not meet tonight. Negotiations have not. Rob, do you have anything on personnel?
Just what's written in the personnel
We've got a
report.
school committee recorder.
Yes. Yes, we do have a school committee report. Good news.
You will be watching the video after this meeting. He couldn't make it because he was, he's coaching or something of that sort this evening.
Hi, Jacob.
School committee subcommittees.
So, Jason, do you have any update on the MSBA?
Well, thank you to all who came to our third forum, what was the last week? Time goes by so fast, but
It does.
both in person and online, very informative meeting, and got all the information out except for the finances, which will be coming out middle of November. But our next meeting is going to be, just to make sure I get this right, not next week, but the 23rd, October 23rd, the next building meeting at 5:30.
Terrific. Any public comment? We're running out of public. Seeing none. Any school committee comment? The unanimous consent, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.